What's up, guys? Todd Jones with Stoked on Youth Ministry here. And one of the most difficult things for us as student pastors is to figure out where we're headed, figure out our direction of our ministry, figure out why it is we do what we do, nailing down our mission. Now, if we're going to figure out our mission, I think it's super important that we go back and start with Jesus. Jesus is a great place to start. Jesus is the reason we do what we do. So let's start with Jesus. Jesus was here for a reason. Jesus had a mission. And we can look back on the scriptures, we can look back in the Bible and say, here's why Jesus was here. But I think it's best if we take why Jesus was here, what his mission was, straight from him. And in fact, Jesus tells us, his own words, why he's here. The reason that he's here. In Luke 19:10, Jesus says these words. He says, "For the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost." To seek and save those who are lost. That's the reason Jesus came. He tells us that himself. He tells us why he's here, the reason that he came. Okay, now that doesn't really help us much for why we're here, unless Jesus then said something to us about what we're supposed to do. Let's look at what Jesus says, because he actually tells us as well what our purpose is, the reason that we're here, the mission that we have. He says this, super famous, you should all know this, Matthew 28:19, "Go and make disciples of all nations." Go, right? Go tell people about me. I'm here to seek and save the lost, Jesus said. Now it's your job to go tell other people. Now you might have wondered this before. I've definitely been someone to wonder this. If heaven is so great, if God has this perfect plan for us, and this world is not so great and so difficult, and we all know the struggles that we face, then how come when we accept Jesus, we're not just taken to heaven? How come you and I aren't just taken to heaven as soon as we put our faith and trust in him? And in fact, this is a question that the disciples had as well. They asked Jesus the same thing, and they said, "Jesus, when are you going to make things right? When are you going to make things right?" They asked Jesus that, and he replied this. He said, "The Father alone knows the dates and the times, and that's not for you to know when everything's going to be made right. We don't need to know that. Here's what you do need to know." He said, "You'll receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you." Right? Not just power for us, but what Jesus says here is super important. He said, "You will receive power and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere." Telling people about me everywhere. See, if Jesus had a mission, and Jesus' mission was for him to come and seek and save the lost, and then Jesus tells us from his own mouth, hey, here's your mission as well. And in fact, I'm going to give you the Holy Spirit to help you with the mission. Your mission is to tell everyone everywhere about me. See, as student pastors, I think that mission doesn't change just because we work with students, but a lot of times we get confused on that. And I think the mission that you and I need to have isn't one that we come up with. It's in fact one that Jesus already gave us. It's a mission to reach lost students, to reach lost people. That's the reason Jesus came, and that's the reason that you and I are called to do what we're called to do. There are so many students that are in this desperate state where they need Jesus. The problem with many of our churches, though, and the problem with many of our student ministries is that we don't see those students. We begin to only focus on the students that we already have in our ministry. We begin to only see those, and we turn it into something it was never meant to be. And here are 3 things that will help you stay on the mission that God has given us. God's given you the mission. It's not one that Stoked on Youth Ministry came up with. It's not one that I came up with. Jesus himself said it. Here are 3 ways to help you make it actually happen. The first is this: say no to the club. Say no to the club. See, it's really easy for us to get focused in on the few that we have and turn our ministries into a club. Now, a ministry is not a club. A ministry is something that is constantly focusing on helping people and reaching people, not just providing a really fun area for 6 to 12 to 15 or however many students you've made a part of your club. Say no to the club, and it starts with a mentality to realize, man, there are more people out there that need to be a part of this. This isn't a closed off group. It's one that exists to reach people. Number 1, say no to the club. Number 2 is this. Number 2, that's going to help you accomplish the mission that Jesus gave you, is think about and focus on outsiders. Not just saying no to the club, but thinking about them and thinking, man, if I do this event or I do this thing, or how am I, if I say this a certain way, how is it going to appeal to those who are outside? How are we going to look to outsiders so that they'll want to become insiders? We can focus our planning, our mission, our ministry, everything on them and change our focus from the club and from the inward to outward in order to fulfill God's mission. Number 3 is this. Listen, you can't do it on your own. So here's number 3, train and equip your students to reach their world. This mission is not one that was just given to student pastors. This was not just given to a group of apostles that hung out with Jesus. This mission was given to anyone who calls himself a follower of Jesus. So your students can be a part of this mission as well. And your students need to be a part of this mission, and they need to understand that the gospel and that church and that the whole idea of ministry is not about them, but it's actually about Jesus' plan to reach those who are lost. I am super excited about what God is going to do in your ministry as you follow him on his mission. Thank you guys so much for being youth workers. Thank you so much for pouring your life into students, for helping them find and follow Jesus. You guys are going to do awesome. I'll see you guys next week.